Are you a fan of the Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Wrong button. There we go. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and tonight I'm joined by, one of our usual hosts. Say hi, Marc.
Holla!
Holla. And our special guest tonight, Josh from Papercut. Say hi, Josh.
Hello.
All right, so you guys might wonder why we have somebody from Papercut here. That's because we're going to talk about Papercut, what they do, who they are, all that stuff. Should be fun. At the moment, I'm fixing a frame on Marc's camera here. That's so much better. No, it's not your fault. Not your fault at all. Blame OBS, or blame something I did before the show started.
I'm okay with that.
So, yeah. All right, so I guess, Josh, if you want to just tell us quick who you are. It doesn't have to be on a professional level, personal level if you want. Do you have any social channels or whatever you want us to follow? And then we'll start talking about Papercut.
Who is your daddy and what does he do? Anyway.
So I obviously I work for Papercut. I work in Papercut support. So if anyone out there uses Papercut and has issues with it, there's a chance I could be the guy on the end of your ticket. In a personal setting, I play a lot of video games. Yes, my audio is low. There's not much we can do about it. I'm as boosted as much as I can.
Look at that already.
Yep, straight up.
Already they're complaining. Sorry, I'm working on my light too. Something else I forgot to do before the show started. So we we had this conversation before we went live, folks. For whatever reason, his audio is low. There's not much we can do about it from here, but I will fix it in post, so the recording should be pretty good to go.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's just you poor scrubs on the live stream get a softer me.
Gentler him.
Kinder and gentler.
In a personal level, I like to play video games. I'm a bit of an advocate for VR. I actually wrote a blog recently for Papercut on our website about where I see VR and AR augmented reality going in the future.
That's pretty
cool.
How
that could play into Papercut's future. Because we have this internal goal of being a 100-year startup, a 100-year company. So I'm just like, how could AR and VR play into that in the year 2121 and what that might look like?
How far into the 100 years are you, Papercut?
Well, we've been around for 21, 22 years or so. We started in the late 90s, sort of turn of the millennium was around where I think we started putting out stuff. So I remember my first year, I started at Papercut in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, 2018. And the Christmas party that year was 20s themed because that was the 20th anniversary.
Okay. Bunch of people in like
a roaring 20s.
Roaring 20s style.
Yeah. They hired out a old-fashioned cinema. If you can't tell my accent, I'm in Melbourne. Papercut is a Melbourne-based, Australia-based company. So they hired out an old-fashioned cinema here in Melbourne, and we just used the lobby and foyer, which was that had that aesthetic, and we had companies come in and run roulette and blackjack tables for us, all for play money and whatnot. And
sure.
Yeah, that was really fun.
That must have been neat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that spawned a question and it just vanished from me.
I will say the Australian accent has me completely excited for tomorrow's episode of The Bad Batch. Because my daughter and I watched that together.
I haven't watched it yet. I really need to.
Yeah, I haven't watched it because I know you still need to watch Clone Wars to watch The Bad Batch, and I never got it. I missed Clone Wars completely, so I need to work my way through that before I can do Bad Batch.
Well, around the start of the pandemic, Marc was all about this project that him and his daughter started where they were going to watch all, and I do mean all, of the Star Wars content from, in whatever chronological order. He had a timeline and everything.
Story order.
Yeah, the story order, right. Yeah, not chronological like release, but story order, right? So he had this big
Yeah,
timeline he was following. How far through that did you get?
I am up to Empire Strikes Back. That's the next one on my list.
Cool, cool.
I've taken a little bit of a break. I got into a. I'm cutting into Josh's time now. I've been in a Marvel mood lately. Alligator Loki's the best Loki, right? But been in a Marvel mood lately, so I ended up rewatching Infinity War and then Endgame,
Yep.
and then I decided to rewatch the original Avengers. And
not?
now
Good movie.
and so now what I'm doing is Disney Plus. They give you this option to watch everything in timeline order.
They've got that timeline order. Yeah.
Oh
So-
yeah.
So I already banged out Captain America, America's ass. It's awesome. And Captain Marvel, actually was a lot more enjoyable on the second watch because I saw it once in the theaters, and I
So-
completely enjoyed the rewatch.
That was a
And-
good. That was a good movie. I loved.
It's a good movie.
I loved.
Yeah.
So it took.
A lot of Nick Fury.
Well, it took the feel of. Why am I blanking on? My brain apparently is not working tonight.
I don't know.
The movie was Star-Lord. Why the hell am I not?
Guardians of the
Galaxy.
Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. It took the feel of Guardians of the Galaxy with the old music and moved it ahead a decade, which is the decade I associate with best, the 90s, right? I loved
yeah.
all of the music in that movie. It was just such I love and wasn't one of the characters wearing a Nine Inch Nails shirt? I'm like
Well,
jumping
yeah.
up in the living room like, yeah!
She was at one point.
She was wearing it when she was undercover as a Shield agent.
That's right.
When she and Nick Fury
That's
were
right.
were
That was
looking through
awesome.
the archives.
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
no, it definitely. And what's really cool, and I'm sorry, Josh, I'll let you get back to talking.
Yeah,
about
we'll talk about
No,
Papercut in a
I'm,
second.
I'm happy to talk about Marvel. I love the MCU.
What's really cool is having watched Loki, having watched WandaVision, and that stuff. It's really cool seeing all the callbacks that now you're like, oh right, I remember that, and oh wow, that crap all made a lot of sense.
It's not a cat.
Someone they must have a bunch of interns or even regular employees just keeping track of continuity and stuff because
Yeah.
100% they would. Actually, I would trying to avoid spoilers because I know Loki is relatively new. I saw a quote recently from Kevin Feige, the guy who heads up basically everything to do with the MCU, from a big meeting they had recently with basically every writer for Marvel that's around, and basically what the end of Loki means for them and how they need to like the mechanics of that and that going forward, because what happens at the end of Loki is going to affect every MCU thing from here to
oh
they
hells
fix it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
then
doing
we have,
really bad at all of these because I haven't caught up on that either. I mean, that's only a couple weeks out now, isn't it? Loki?
Loki for season 1 of Loki is done.
But I mean, it's
Yeah.
only been out a couple of weeks, is what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
completed.
it was like either 6 or 8 episodes.
6.
6, thank you. And then this August we've got the first Marvel animated series, What If, and they're going to have a lot of fun with that. The trailer for What If is amazing. So,
All right.
So what is
So
Papercut?
Papercut.
Yeah, let's talk about Papercut. What's Papercut? Can you give us a high level like who is Papercut as a company? I guess do you have just the one product that we talked about that I'm aware of, or do you have several? You know, it's like what's it look like?
Yeah. So at a high level, Papercut, we are a print management software company. I know, hold your applause, nice and glamorous.
I do have a soundbite for that somewhere.
Yeah, so that's the crux of what we do. We do have a few different pieces of software, some paid, some free, that all have their own niche, so to speak. So our two main ones, our most legacy sort of products that are going around are Papercut NG and Papercut MF. Now, MF is probably the one most people would be familiar with or think of when they think of Papercut. It's our bread and butter essentially. NG is essentially exactly the same as MF, but with slightly removed functionality. There's no embedded software on devices. So with MF, you can actually install an application on your printer that allows people to walk up and see a Papercut branded interface and log into it and interact with Papercut from the device itself. NG doesn't have that part of it, but it has everything else, which we can talk about more server-side stuff. Other pieces of software we have include our free tool, which has been picking up a lot of steam since Google Cloud Print shut down Mobility Print. It's our alternative to it in the wake of Google Cloud Print shutting down.
Wait, Google shut down a service?
Yeah, I know.
I lose
it's weird.
track.
You never. I know they don't do that very often. But yeah, so this was a feature that Google were working on that never actually officially left beta. But it allowed printers to be printed to remotely via the internet without actually having to install anything on your computer. And Mobility Print is this tool that we already had to allow mobile devices to quickly be able to get into your print system and print from your iPhone or Android or BYOD device, so to speak, without needing to go to the specifics of installing printers and drivers onto the computer. We put a big update on that to allow it to be able to print over the internet securely back into your network as Google were getting ready to pull this service. So this is a free tool, but it does integrate in with MFNNG for more advanced tracking and bits and pieces in that respect. But Mobility Print, totally free. If anyone is looking for something to help them since GCP shut down, have a look at Papercut Mobility Print. Doesn't cost you a cent, and it might fill a gap that you have.
Hopefully this doesn't get you in trouble, but Papercut MF sounds like something that you'd have Samuel L. Jackson as the spokesperson.
Haven't heard that one. That's good.
Why are there so many MF printers on this MF plane?
And we have two other pieces of software it's probably worth me talking about. These are our newest pieces of software, Papercut Pocket and Papercut Hive. These are our cloud-based offerings for print management. They are new. They are actively being worked on, actively having features built and developed for them. And similar with Pocket and Hive, Hive has bits that can be installed directly on the printers to have that interface, where Pocket is the pared back version that doesn't have that but still has all the background functionality of it. But yeah, we can talk more about that if you want, but these are our newest offerings that for potentially smaller environments that maybe don't have a print server.
Okay.
Yeah, something like Pocket or Hive, Papercut Pocket, Papercut Hive would be something potentially worth looking into. Yeah, as that's our suite. I'm happy to dive into any questions sort of about all of these tools.
So this is, I mean, at least we hope anyway, a show for system administrators, right? So they're probably wondering what sort of infrastructure is required, right? Bare minimum to run Papercut, and it sounds like there's quite the gamut here.
Yeah, that's the thing. We do our best to sort of work in sort of any environment that you might have. Thinking of something like MF, our mainstay that most people would be familiar with, the basic setup, and this is by no means the required or anything. This is just your bog standard, say like a small business or a school where you just have like a print server, and everyone prints to that print server, and then that print server obviously delegates the jobs out to the printers. That server is where you would install Papercut for the most part, where it can then monitor your print queues and the jobs coming in and analyze them, figure out who they belong to, how many pages they are, whether it's color or black and white, simplex or duplex, all that sort of fancy stuff. And if it's, say, something like a school, you can set up costing models on that. So students will be charged for the jobs that they print, or maybe they've got a monthly allowance or an allowance per semester that can be used up, and then they could potentially pay to have more credit if you choose to do it that way. That's the thing with Papercut. It's so customizable. I sometimes see some complaints online on Twitter or whatnot from end users who complain about Papercut, but most of the time they don't necessarily realize that that's not necessarily a fault of Papercut, but it just hasn't been configured the best way for them.
Yeah, it's the way the admin set it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, the server software for Papercut MF runs on Windows, Mac, Linux, so your sort of gambit of server OSs. And yeah, as far as clients go,
Right.
yeah, as far as like user clients, sometimes it you don't need to install anything on a user machine. So as long as it can print via the print server, in that circumstance, that they're going to be able to print just fine. Um, yeah.
So, all right. So, say I'm in an environment, right? I've got,
Hmm.
I don't know, either Windows or a Linux box, right? That I have
Yep.
my printers connected to, whether they're over the
Sure.
network or they're physically plugged into the thing. I'm probably just using like the Windows print spooler to do my print job management, or I'm using cups on a Linux box, and that's all working, right? So
Hmm.
why would I consider Papercut as an
I,
alternative to just the
yeah.
dirt simple whatever's included with my OS?
Yeah. Sure. So it's we don't necessarily replace any of that. We sit on top of it and work alongside it. The whole reason that Papercut was started 20 years ago by our founders was they worked in education. So we have that's where we got our start in education and the needs of education. And they were um, admins at a school, and they were noticing just so much paper wastage. Students would print stuff, forget to go and collect it, reprint it,
I
and it
have
was just because
stories.
you hit print and that just comes out of the printer.
Yep.
So that was our
Which printer? I
main.
don't know. That one down the hall, maybe.
Exactly. So that you hint at one of our main features that we call find me printing. So as far as the user is concerned, they hit print and they, if you've set it up right, one printer is on their machine. Call it the Papercut printer or whatever, and you print to that printer, and then Papercut does the magic of holding that job in that print queue and waiting for you to tell it which printer you want it to print out of. And that's where our embedded software on the devices come into play. You walk up to that device, you badge in with your swipe card or an ID or username, password, whatever, log into the device, and you tell it, hey, this is the printer I'm at. And then the server will redirect that queue into the print queue, redirect that job into the print queue for that printer, and it will spit out whilst you're standing at the printer. Um, hold release find me printing, and that's one of the main things that it was developed for in the first place, to avoid that paper wastage.
Right.
We've had um, I've seen anecdotes from schools that in the first year of implementing Papercut have saved the cost of the license in
Well,
toner
I
and
mean,
paper
look,
wastage.
it's you're. We talked a little bit before the show went live. I used to work in higher ed. Now, I wasn't the guy managing labs and managing printers, but I worked with those guys, so I heard some of the stories. And we had actually deployed Papercut at one point, but before that, I think the straw that broke the camel's back was like a student had purchased an ebook of like their biology textbook or something. And they're just
Yeah.
like, well, I want to go back to my dorm and read this, or I want to sit out on the quad and read this. So I'm just going to print all these chapters that I need to read. And, out came a ream of paper of whatever textbook. And the librarians are like, we can't keep, we can't afford to keep paper in
Yeah,
the printers if the kids are doing this. So,
exactly. So that's where we come into play. So you could, depending on how you configure Papercut, totally allow that job to go through, but the student's getting slogged per page. Or
right.
you could have restrictions in place that block jobs over a certain amount of pages. Like you can put all that stuff in place to make sure that people are only printing the sort of stuff you want them to print,
Yeah.
or
And then,
charge them.
yeah, I was going to say, you could theoretically turn that into chargebacks too, right? I think
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
they used it as a way to limit print jobs, I think. They did not
Mm.
use it to enforce chargebacks. I think students had quotas, but there wasn't like a charge involved. So, and of
Yeah,
course, they
yeah.
all complained, and then they went and got mommy and daddy to complain, and it's a nightmare. I'm so glad I don't work in higher ed
That's the
anymore.
side of things I'm lucky I don't ever have to really deal with.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, other types of organizations use Papercut as well. Stuff like lawyers or accountants, where they're printing on behalf of clients. So we have in the software, there's a feature called shared accounts. So these could be set for multiple different things in an education space. Maybe each department, say like the
Mm-hmm.
science or maths or English departments, you can have shared accounts set up for them, and those accounts have a budget. So when a maths teacher prints, they can choose to have that come out of the maths shared account that maybe they have $200 a month
Sure.
for or yeah. But in like a legal or accounting space, they set those shared accounts up per client. So for every client has a shared account. So as a way of having any user, any lawyer or accountant need to do printing on behalf of one of their clients, they should choose that client shared account, and then the client can then give
Be
them money to
billed.
top that up, or
Yeah,
exactly, get
because for
billed
what a
on that.
lawyer
Yeah,
charges, they can't be printing stuff for free. I mean,
No.
they're
exactly.
public
So
servants
yeah,
after all.
exactly. So yeah, that sort of functionality is addressed as well in Papercut. Um, yeah, and a lot of the ways that you may be selecting these accounts or whatnot is through the Papercut user client. So this is a piece of software that you would install on user machines. There's multiple different ways to deploy it via a local cache or MSI or pushed out versus whatever management that you've got. This, I believe, is only for Windows and Mac, but it's a little tool that runs in the background, and it basically is a listener for messages from the server. So if you print a job and the server needs information from you about that job, whether it's what shared account do you want to charge to, or you've got a pop-up saying, if every time a print job that's over 10 pages comes through and it's in color, ask the user if they want to print it in black and white. It's the client that would receive and display that message, and then the user would say, actually, yeah, I don't need this in color, convert it to black and white for me, and they would just click the corresponding answer, and then the server would obviously receive that and transform the job into black and white, or charge it to whatever account the user selected. So that functionality is there too.
It's interesting that it can sort of intercept the job like that. So
Yeah, we can do all sorts of transforms on the job, convert it to black and white, change it from simplex to duplex, potentially even this is where things get a bit harder, but I'm not sure how well printer languages, PDLs, stuff like PostScript and PCL6 and whatnot. There can be a bit of stuff that goes wrong when you try to convert from one language to the other. As I'm sure whenever you type something into Google Translate, it doesn't quite come out right on the other side. The same sort of thing can happen when converting PDLs.
yes,
with a small job. Yeah,
I've seen those things happen. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so we can do transforms. Watermarking as well can be applied to jobs, so who's printed it physically on the paper. If that is something you need.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So my brain keeps going to the technical aspect of how this all works. So
yeah, sure, I can talk about that.
You said it runs kind of alongside whatever print queue you were already running, whether that's cups or the Windows print spooler or whatever. Is it actually like a shim that's in front of it, or it really does just read jobs that come into the queue and utilize whatever tools to communicate with that queue?
Sure. So I am mainly a Windows guy. I know more about the Windows side of things than the cup, so I'll talk more to that.
Sure.
On Windows, when you install it on the print server, there are two basic services that run in the background to have the Papercut server work. There's the Papercut application server service, and that's all the front end stuff. The admin UI and all the configuration is done in browser, so that application server service hosts that web client and does all the front end stuff and computational power of charging users for jobs through to the either internal or external database. You could have your Papercut database run in any number of external database suites that you've got and hook it in, or we do ship with a Derby database inbuilt. Pardon me. But the magic, or what I call the magic of Papercut, is the other service that makes it work, which is the print provider service. So this one, the basic way it works, when a print job hits a print queue on the server that the print provider is installed on, the first thing the print provider does is pause that job at a queue level. It then reads through the spool file and the metadata around it to figure out the language that print job was printed in, like the PDL, the printer description language, the user it belongs to, how many pages, whether it's color or black and white, all that sort of stuff, and report that back to the application server to then do whatever it needs to do. If the job is in a queue that has been told to hold it, it will then remain paused. But if it's told to just not hold it and print it straight out again. As soon as the analysis is done, the print provider will unpause the job and it will just come out of the printer like normal. You'll barely even notice a delay. It happens quite quickly. But yeah, if it is in a hold release job, a hold release queue, so to speak, it will remain paused until the user tells the job to unpause. But that's how it does it. It basically pauses the job at a queue level, and I'm pretty sure it's similar in cups as well, where it just
and then
pauses.
I assume it's able to rewrite certain aspects of that job. You said it can
Yeah.
convert a color print to a black and white print, or it can add a watermark or whatever.
Yeah. So it would generate a new spool file using the language of the queue that it's been told to go into, and remove the original. But Papercut would know that this new spool file is the new version of the old one, and keep it all linked up as one job in Papercut system. But you might see an extra. If you were physically watching the queue at an OS level, or in the spool folder on the server, you might see some extra spool files pop in and out as that happens. But Papercut keeps that all tracked and linked up. Yeah,
that's interesting. Pretty cool. Does Papercut have any interesting sort of integrations with any other big Apple? I mean, I'm. This is a completely open question. I don't even have an idea in mind of what it might be.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Yeah, sure. On our website, we have a whole list of integrations that we've got. The main ones that people use most are payment gateways. As I mentioned, you can choose to have your users be charged for their printing, and you can automatically allocate them balance or quota, or whatever you want to call it, on a scheduled basis or ad hoc. But you can also link it up to a payment gateway like PayPal or whatever. We've got quite a few there that have been developed, so you could actually charge via credit that
like
way.
per sheet or something, if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, per sheet or page or whatnot. But you could have, like, as a student's balance gets low, you could notify them, and then they could log into the user-facing web page and update their balance via $10 charge via PayPal or whatnot.
Right.
And then
Right.
the app server receives from PayPal that a $10 charge has gone through and updates the user's balance by $10.
So the next time Johnny tries to print his biology book, he gets a charge for
it. He's actually paying real money. Yeah. But there's a plethora of them, as well as stuff like
that might still be cheaper than buying a biology book, though.
Exactly.
These things are ridiculous.
Accounting integrations,
Most likely.
with various accounting softwares. I know there's like Leap Cloud and QuickBooks and stuff like that. I know MyOb's in there. I'm not sure how big MyOb is in the US, but I know it's a relatively big one out here in Australia. But yeah, there's all sorts of integrations that are mostly developed by our partners. I should probably talk a little bit about our channel, which is sort of the magic of how Papercut gets out to people to buy it.
Okay.
I mentioned that we have, for both of our big ones, Papercut MF and Papercut Hive, there's the pared back ones, Papercut NG and Papercut Pocket, that don't have the device integrations. Those ones without the device integrations, you can purchase directly from us. You can log onto the website and say, I want to trial Hive. We have a 40-day free trial Pocket, so to speak, or NG, 40-day free trials. You go onto the website, you download them, you set up, you go sort of self-serve that way. For Papercut MF and Papercut Hive, since their big thing is the device integrations, we don't actually sell them directly from us. You have to go through our reseller chain, our reseller channel, because they're so device specific. So most of the time, if you've got the company that actually sold or leased you your devices, they're the people who would actually sell you and help you set up Papercut in the first place, and make sure that it gets installed on your devices, because installing embedded application onto a printer is not the same as downloading an app off your Android or iOS.
No, I would imagine.
So there are so many more steps, and the manuals to do it are so complex. We do not expect site admins to know how to do that.
I would imagine that printer vendors probably don't want the end users doing that anyway, or maybe not the end user, but even the administrators, right? Because there's so much that can go wrong there. You're writing firmware, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So in the US, it's actually done through the Authorized Solution Center. So our two big ones in the US are companies EcoPrintQ and ACDI. They're our biggest partners in the US, and they've got all like the resellers that sit below them, whether they're OEMs or just printer copier shops that you
So
might have down
you'd,
the street. Yeah.
as an enterprise or whatever, you would go to them and say, "I need 200 printers, and by the way, throw in some Papercut," right?
Yeah, so you would go to the copier company,
Yeah.
and then for the paper cut side of things, they would then liaise with
Right.
the ASC, whether it's ACDI or EcoPrintQ, and then I believe in the US, it's then ACDI or EcoPrintQ that would actually help set up Papercut itself. They'd remote into your site and help actually get it all configured and working properly. Where in other parts of the world, we have the resellers themselves do that setup. Just a bit different in America.
Cool. So there's only one question left on my list, and you know which one it is. So you feel free to reference the website or whatever you have to do, but I have to ask because this is Iron System, and we always have a tilt towards security with just about everything we look at.
No, that's
There have
fine.
been
And
lots of stories about printer security this and printer security that. High level, does Papercut do anything to just improve overall printer fleet security?
yeah, so as I mentioned, Papercut was started in the education space with that as a focus. So that means that we sort of had to be a bit security focused because kids can be kids and kids like to hack.
Oh yeah.
So I mentioned one of our big features earlier, the hold, release, and find me printing. That in itself is a security feature, a secure print release, because when you hit print on your computer, the job doesn't just come out of the printer straight away, whether that's the other side of the campus or down the hall or on a different floor. You have, if it's set up this way, you have to be at the printer to release it, which means if you're printing sensitive documents, someone isn't going to necessarily walk past the printer and pick up your documents.
I'm printing out my
right
tax
there.
return or something, right?
Exactly.
You walk up to it and
yeah. That was it. When I worked in the office, that was a thing.
Yeah.
Because I was at the Merck World Headquarters from 2004 until I went pretty much full remote. I was there, and that was a couple of years. And yeah, you'd occasionally have. It was pretty amusing the stuff you'd find on a printer.
Yeah.
Like, was this person thinking straight?
Yeah. Why did you print this and then leave it on the
this?
Yeah. Right. Why did you leave it on the printer too? Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and amongst other things as well, the users in Papercut, they come from normally a sync source. They're not necessarily all internal users. So we obviously integrate in with Active Directory and things like that. And the user groups that you may have people categorized in your user directory can get pulled in, and then you can apply different access level based on user group. So go back to our school situation, staff and teachers can have different access level and different security permissions than students on the devices, or even from a server level. And even admins inside Papercut, it's so granular, you can choose who has access to what. Say you've got the office, the person who works in the office out the front, and students can walk up to them to hand over money to physically top up a balance that way. You only want that person to have access to be able to do that, not to change all your configuration. So you just give them admin privileges to adjust user balances and get access into that part of the software, versus the site sysadmin who maybe has full access to everything.
All sorts of RBAC stuff.
Yeah.
So John the Nice Guy is asking, what do you use to release the print?
I think that was authentication, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I say, there are multiple different ways, and depending on the software you're using as well. So, Papercut MF, I'll talk about that as the standard, because that is the one.
And I still have Samuel L. Jackson glaring over my shoulder at you.
Yeah, right.
So that is released normally from the device itself. So you walk up to the device, it's got a logon screen on it that's being displayed to you, presented via via Papercut, whether that's branded as Papercut or rebranded to look nice to suit your school or university or workplace. We have rebranding options in there, and then they can just if you've got an NFC reader on there and you've got security badges, you just badge in with your card or
Sweet.
a PIN number or
NFC
username
reader,
and
that'd be
password.
great.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of sites do have that because they've got
Yeah,
every
got a
staff member
badge,
has
yeah.
a card to exactly. So you can get readers for your printers as well, and you can link up the card numbers to the users in Papercut. So they just tap their card, log into the device, and from there they're presented with again, depending on how you have it configured, you could have it configured that as soon as somebody logs into the device, and every print job that they've got waiting for them prints out straight away, or you can have it that they go into another screen and they can see all their print jobs and choose which ones they want to release or delete from the screen there.
What if there are printers, and maybe I'm dating myself, but what if there's printers that don't have like a screen and a keyboard or anything
Sure.
like that?
No, that's fine. There are plenty that are like that. We have release station software. So this started from before there was the ability to install apps on printers. So you had to have that. So you could have an old computer or Raspberry Pi device that basically acts as the screen for your printer. So a little terminal that sits next to the printer, that someone logs into that and tells it to release. And Papercut knows that that release station belongs to that printer. So when they release from that release station, the job comes out of the printer that's next to it. There's also the mobile release option. If your mobile device is on the same network as your printer, you can put QR codes on the printers, and people can scan those QR codes or
Now that's
log
smart.
in on a browser on their phone and tell it which printer to log out of. That though leads into our cloud-based offerings that I mentioned, Papercut Pocket and Papercut Hive. That is sort of, with Pocket, the only way to do it. We have an app that sits on your phone. So when you print with Papercut Pocket, you get a notification on your phone saying your job is ready to release. And you can go into the app and tell it to which printer you want to release out of, or you could have an NFC sticker or a QR code at the printer. So you just tap your phone at the printer or scan the QR code at the printer, and you control it all through through your mobile device. Quite contactless that way as well. If you think of the global situation, I think it's getting better over there, but over here in Australia, it's starting to pick up again. But with Papercut Hive, you have that app, but you also have the device screen as well to do similar stuff like in MF. Yeah.
Sweet. So J Scar is asking, do you have to be internet connected, or does this work in a disconnected network?
Yep.
Like, and I guess
100%.
there might
Yeah.
be products that need the internet, but
Yeah.
you know.
So Papercut NG and Papercut MF, you do not need to be internet connected at all. It is all locally ran. You can host your MF server in a private cloud if you wish to, but obviously you need a connection to it then. But yeah, it is all run locally and normally managed on-prem by the site. You can link up multiple sites. There's something I forgot to mention. We have site server software, so you could have two branches that all run off the same Papercut installation. One branch maybe has the main Papercut server, and the secondary branch just has a site server which talks back over maybe a WAN or a VPN back to the main server. It does still need to be on the same network. That doesn't necessarily go over the internet unless you do some weird hacky stuff to make that work. And then people printing at the second site, it's all still logged and reported in the main company's.
So I'm going to ask what might be a crazy question.
Go ahead.
Is it a legitimate use case to set this up in your home if you have a single printer? And I'm only thinking that because, like, I have 4 kids now. Not all of them still live at home, and then my wife and my daughter are here. They have their MacBooks, and there's multiple different PCs. Would this be worth setting up in your house, just even if you have a single printer?
How much your kids are printing?
or just would it make it easier, like presenting the generic print queue
do you
to
have
all
like
the devices?
Do you have like a Papercut Home Edition? Is
like
what Mark's
s-
asking.
Well,
it would be NG, I
sort
think.
of.
yeah.
But do you use? Okay, let me ask you this: do you have Papercut set up in your house?
I don't even have a printer.
I mean, I don't like
I
having
don't
a
blame you.
printer, but
um,
you sometimes like, especially my wife likes printing out financial based stuff.
mhm.
uh you know, and then she for years, although she's stepping down because my son aged out, she was the troop treasurer, so she'd need to print stuff out for the scout stuff for the
Yeah,
treasurer.
sure.
But I'm just wondering, is home overkill, or
Well, like
do people
it
actually
can
set
be,
it up
but
at
in a
home?
situation like yours where you have a few kids and you want to make sure that the kids aren't printing too much and all that sort of stuff, you could set it up. You obviously need the right infrastructure for something like you would go NG, the self-serve one, because you wouldn't necessarily need the software on the device itself. And most home printers, they wouldn't be compatible with the embedded
Right.
software anyway.
Sure.
And NG is actually free if you've got 5 or less users.
Oh,
After your 40-day trial, it will just continue to run. If you've got more than 5 users, that's where it will then tell you need to purchase a license. But under 5, you're good to give it a
Is
burl.
that 5 users or 5 devices?
Users. So in Papercut itself, it tracks your users there, whether they are, as I say, brought in from a sync source.
So I would be Uncle Mark even if I had it set up on my cell phone, on my mobile, on my Linux machine, on my Windows machine.
Correct. Yes, it's you are the user. So you can have 5 users in basically it's 5 users active in the Papercut database.
Okay.
There's
So
it's hard to say without showing you, but there's a users tab, and you can see
I
your
can
users.
picture a user tab.
Yep.
And since
Yeah.
my dogs don't have opposable thumbs, nor are they literate, they would not have to count.
They don't need to print that much.
Correct. Yes.
They
Yeah,
might
exactly.
print out pictures of squirrels or something. You never know.
They might. They might.
Yeah,
And I'm
so
not trying to be ridiculous, because
no.
we have a lot of listeners who, like, they set up I mean, I've got a Rel 8 server sitting over here
Yeah.
that is
folks
running
listening to this
multiple
show
virtual machines.
may
you
very
know,
well have enterprise class hardware and software in their homes.
and it doesn't it's my primary DNS server, and my failback DNS server is my router. You know, I've got the Synology serving NAS and stuff. I know we have folks who've set up, like, who they set up their Plex servers. They run gaming servers.
I mean, Mark used to have a Red Hat virtualization cluster literally under his desk, so you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
asking a question like that for my peer group, my friend, my fellow Red Hatters, and some of our listeners, it's not as crazy as you might think.
No, it's totally fine. The only problems you might run into is the analysis capabilities of the print jobs you've got coming through, because a lot of home printers, your basic ones that you're picking up from
You basic. Oh,
your basic ones that you're printing up from I don't know,
the good
where,
place,
like
you know.
Walmart or whatever. I'm not sure US stores. I'd say Officeworks here in Australia. The ones that you're spending more on ink than you are on
Oh,
the printer
right.
itself.
Yeah, I got an old
they're-
HP monochrome laser. It's
their drivers that they use, they can be a bit finicky
wait,
for
it's
us to
Samsung.
I'm not surprised.
interpret and work with, because they don't necessarily use the more industry-based languages that that your bigger proper copier multifunction devices.
Yeah, I mean,
So
have in the office.
any
would
printer any printer with a driver that's more than a meg or two makes you wonder really what's going on in there.
So would the Australian term for that be it's shite, or is that a different region?
Not necessarily. They're not necessarily bad. They're just it should still work. Just you may not get the necessary correct level of analysis from
They're economy class
them.
printers is what we're talking
It's
about.
sort of your mileage may vary sort of situation.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So I had one kind of follow-up question to the security discussion, and this has just popped into my head as we were talking about printing out tax forms and whatever. And if this isn't a feature of Papercut, write it down. Maybe it'd be the next thing. I know there's lots of things, lots of software, security software that's meant to prevent the exfiltration of private data by identifying PII, like social security numbers and whatever, and preventing that from moving. Like, you could have a filter on your outgoing mail server that says if there's a social security number in this, don't let it go because that's against our policy.
Let it go.
Can
Let
Papercut
it go.
do? Yeah, I started it.
Yeah.
Does Papercut have anything like that? That could
Not
be.
really. No, you could do it potentially based off job name, but that's obviously easily changed by a user, because that's easy for us to interpret. The name of this job includes the words tax file number. Don't let it print out. But actual content analysis and denying of job based on that isn't something we do. There are probably third-party softwares that you could have in place to intercept the job potentially before it reaches us, to do something like that, but it's not. That's not a feature of Papercut.
Yeah,
it's just
that's fair.
Using your brain.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Don't print that.
Well, no, right?
Or
so
only print it if you mean it.
In the case, like in the world of, I was an email administrator for years. In the case of email, right? It's somebody that really doesn't. It's meant to prevent accidents. It's meant to prevent the accidental. I just sent all of our students' social security numbers to an external email address in the clear, because that's how email by default works, right? That anybody could then intercept that and then scrape all the data out of it, right? So in the case of a printer, it's not quite as public, right? I mean, sure, someone could grab it over the wire, or they could grab it off the printer. But with your hold and release, right, that would certainly help prevent that.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, that's where the secure print release side comes into things. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's sort of it. The only thing I haven't really touched on is the infrastructure of Papercut Pocket, Papercut Hive, because as I mentioned, they don't require an on-premises print server, and they are more cloud-based. They use Edge Mesh and Edge Node technology. Is the main concept there. So every user in your network basically runs a node to help build out the strength of the mesh. So the jobs are routed to printers via user machines, essentially.
That's interesting.
You could have, say, like the receptionist's PC or a computer that you have doing something else that is always on. So you maybe install the node software on that and promote that to supernode status to let the software know that, hey, this is a really reliable node. Give that one preference, sort of thing. And the cloud side of it comes in because that's where all the computing itself is done. But no jobs leave the network. Everything stays on premises. It's just metadata about the job for analysis purposes and telling it where to go that is communicated up and down from the cloud. But it's all done still very locally. That's the main concept of that one. So as users come in and out of the office with their laptops, that strengthens the mesh.
Cool.
To keep it all quite resilient there. And again, that has the ability for printing off the network. Say someone is taking their laptop down the street to a cafe for lunch and is working on a Google Doc or whatever down there and wants to print it while they're out. That can still print out via a cloud connector back into the mesh. In that case, obviously the job will go over the internet because they're on the cafe's Wi-Fi or tethered via their phone. But once it's back in the mesh, it doesn't stay in the cloud. It's purely there to hop the jump back into the local network.
Okay, so it leverages the cloud to get back to where the printer is. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know what, if I'm like working from home and I print something in the office that's 30 miles away, that doesn't sound all that helpful.
Yeah, well, some people do,
but if you just went out for lunch and
you're
printing from your phone or something like that,
Yeah, exactly. You hit print, and then because this is the one that uses the app, so when you get back into the office, we're working on this feature to send you a notification reminder, like, hey, you've got this job queued up to print. Do you actually want to print it? When it notices you're back in the office.
There you go.
Or like the 4:30 p.m. notification, like, hey, your workday's ending soon. You've still got a few jobs that you haven't printed out yet.
You sure you don't want to print these before you go?
Exactly, yeah. So that sort of stuff in Papercut Pocket, Papercut Hive.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been a fun conversation. Marc, you have any final final questions before we move along?
No, like I said, I'm not a big fan of printers, but I did check out Papercut's website earlier in the call, and this is actually it looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very for some
Yeah,
again someone who's not a fan of printers, and they were my least favorite thing to fix when I was in desk side support back at
we,
Merck.
we try to make that side of things better by hoping that you don't need to fix them as often, at least from
Yeah.
the software
Nah,
side. If the
it's
printer
all right.
physically malfunctions, that's not necessarily something we can
Well,
help with.
that's when
but
you hit it with a baseball bat and you move on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Office Space, that thing. But no, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I really I like the print it, send it anywhere, and then go to the closest printer. That's kind of cool. Because
Yeah.
that was irritating at Merck. There were
Hmm.
so many printers with weird ass names.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
It's
you
like,
don't know
where
which one
did
it
it
is.
go?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which one did it?
Where did it go?
That functionality is the core functionality of Papercut Pocket and Papercut Hive, I should mention. When a user gets set up in those suites, they get an email from the admin that's sent via Papercut saying, "Hey, you've been invited to set up printing." They click through some things. They never have to sign in because it's all token based. They've received the email, and that email has a unique link, so it knows that they're that user. They click a download. It installs the Papercut printer onto their computer, and that's the one printer they'll ever print to. And then it's all inherently that Find Me functionality. You print to the Papercut printer, then you go to the printer you want it to physically come out of.
Yeah, your instinct says it's an extra step, but it's actually glorious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what happens if you print to the printer you thought you wanted to print to, only to go to it to realize that it's out of paper or it's got a jam, and now you have to go back to your computer
Jam
and
on
reprint
it.
the
Print
job.
again.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jam on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
that's great.
yeah.
I
Cool.
never want to work in an office again, so I probably won't have the privilege of using Papercut. But best of luck to you guys.
No, you're gonna totally deploy it at home now, so you can print from your so your
Yeah.
dogs can print
Yeah, I
squirrel
look forward
pictures.
to hearing your.
I might. I'm not.
home
No
setup.
promises there,
Just have
but
a play
it's
around with it.
intriguing. Yeah, yeah. I've got a bit of a list of stuff I want to play around with before
Maybe
this.
maybe you could get your Valheim server to interact with Papercut to submit print jobs whenever I don't know, whenever
Someone gets killed by a
something
falling
useful
tree.
print
happens. I don't
out,
know.
print out a eek whenever I spot a troll. It just sends
Yes,
an eek
the
to
troll
the printer.
scream.
Yeah, the troll noise.
All
Play
right.
Valheim, Josh?
I did dabble with it when it first launched. I struggle to keep up with those games purely because with my babies, I just don't have a lot of time to do the social gaming that I would like. So my gaming times these days are more.
You can.
I want to play this game because it's the game I want to play. It's the story I'm playing through. It's whatever.
Gotcha. What's your
something like that.
current? What's your current game? Your favorite right now?
Oh, it's so hard. So I've been I've been
Hard.
jumping back into VR recently. I finally got around to watching Queen's Gambit, so I've been trying my hand at chess. There's a really good chess game in the Oculus Quest called Chess Club, which sounds really bad, but it's got hand tracking, so you don't need to use controllers. So you
Nice.
just can pick up the piece and move it.
That's kind of cool.
And one of the boards is fully animated, like something out of Harry Potter. You move your pawn, and it walks up and farts in the enemy's face before taking it. It's
Battle
great.
chess. That's totally battle
That
chess.
is- that's spectacular. Yeah,
Marc,
Queen's
you must
Gambit
remember
stuff-
battle chess.
I played battle chess on the Apple II.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah,
I think I played it.
yeah.
You could play it on the Apple II, right? Or was it PC?
I played it on PC.
Apple
The
II's
first
before
time I
my
played
time.
it, it was a DOS based game when I played
I don't
it.
want to be. I don't want to be a liar, but maybe it didn't come out on the Apple.
Well,
II.
this
Battle
was
chess.
definitely graphics that the Apple IIs I'm aware of were not capable of.
Oh yeah, no, it could play on the Apple. I did play it on the Apple II.
Okay,
You could.
cool.
The Apple II could do some pretty baller graphics, dude. It could be slamming.
I have very little exposure to the Apple II. Sorry.
Yeah. Here's the YouTube video.
Oh, great.
I'm gonna drop it in the Twitch chat.
So yeah, check out Battle Chess. I'm sure it's identical to what you're describing.
Now I did have it on PC though. I did have Battle Chess on PC, but I'm pretty sure I did play it first on because yeah, my dad owned an Apple II when I was in high school. You ever try No Man's Sky? That in VR is a pretty solid
Yeah, I
experience.
did. I have. I haven't tried it in a while. I tried it before I built my current PC when I was still
They've
running a 980
updated
Ti.
it. They've
Yeah,
updated it a lot.
yeah. I need to
The
get back
game has
into
been
that one.
updated a lot. They've never charged a cent for any of the updates.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
It's a full flipping game in VR, dude. And
Yeah,
and jumping, like you literally like jump into your spacecraft and you fly by grabbing the sticks.
yeah,
And I'll land on one of my freighters and I'll walk over to the edge and I'll be getting vertigo looking down at the planet. It's really
yeah.
spectacular in
I
VR.
still stand by the most immersive VR experience I've ever had, especially in the early days, was Elite Dangerous. Because
Yeah,
I've got a basic HOTAS myself that I
I have
used
Elite
with that.
Dangerous.
And playing that in VR with a HOTAS was even just doing menial stuff, just mining asteroids and turning that in for credit. Like it was just
I played with a
the
couple of I had a
immersion.
couple of coworkers that play, and they helped me. They brought me up to speed on it. I ended up with this mining ship that had the cockpit that was like the
Yeah, just
270
a glass
degree
dome.
view.
So you're looking all
Right.
around.
So you're sitting there mining, looking down between your feet at like the asteroids just look. And yeah, you're right. It
It's
was
crazy, yeah.
a neat experience.
Mm.
Pretty cool.
And it can be so peaceful as well because you bring in like a mirrored browser window. Say you got like Netflix or something up there, or you say you're watching Bad Batch and Star Wars. You just have like your Star Wars marathon going in a panel up there while you're mining asteroids. It's something a bit different.
Good stuff.
So J-Scar asks, what VR headset do you have? I assume that's for you, Josh, because I think he knows what Marc has.
I'm currently rocking an Oculus Quest 2. I've always been unfortunately stuck in the Oculus ecosystem from day one. I had an Oculus Rift and then a Quest 1 and now the Quest 2. I know the whole Facebook side of things is a bit contentious at the moment, but it's just sort of the ecosystem I'm stuck in because I've unfortunately put too much money into that space, and I just love for less intense stuff, just being able to run it natively off the headset itself. Like it doesn't need to be tethered to your computer. Like it's just I play this chess game completely wireless free. So the Oculus Quest 2 J-Scar is completely standalone. It's got an internal chip, quite a powerful Qualcomm chip designed for standalone VR headsets. It's got a battery built in, but it can also tether to your computer for more meaty stuff like Half-Life Alyx and whatnot. But most of the time I'm playing natively off the headset. And that's the thing. I talk about this a bit in that blog post I mentioned. That's the type of headset that I think is going to propel VR and AR into the mass market because the price point of it.
So the concept, right? If this is going to become more ubiquitous, it can't be tethered to a machine on your desk. It has to be something that's mobile, right? And that's 100%. where Google went with their little VR helmets was kind of cool.
The
where
cardboard,
you just threw your phone in there, right? And you had essentially a mini VR.
From my understanding, that was only 3 degrees of freedom. Yeah, that was purely rotational.
Yeah.
Where obviously the Quest 2, it's
I'm not trying to say that slapping my cell phone into some cardboard is on the same level as your Oculus. I'm saying that
definitely
the concept, right, where it's all self-contained and you plug it in and off you go, right? It had a little control. I had one actually in fact I have it up here used for part of the stream.
Daydream system.
I have.
That was the step Daydream. Up after cardboard was Daydream.
Yeah. Yep. I had. It had this little remote and a little eyewear that you'd pop the phone into. The first Pixel I had supported that. And guess what? They abandoned it. What do you freaking know?
Yeah. Well, the Daydream system was similar to the Oculus Go, which was Oculus's first standalone headset. That was only rotational as well. It didn't have positional tracking.
Yeah.
And that one was meant more for your media watching, bring up a big screen to watch.
It was neat. I gotta say, you could fire up a YouTube video and sit there and like you're surrounded by whatever scene you chose, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's like hanging out in a lounge or like out in the woods or whatever, and there's just your YouTube video playing. It
personal VMAX screen.
Yeah, right. It was pretty cool.
IMAX, sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I will say, if you're willing to have a tethered experience, another fantastic game if you're a nerd is Star Wars Squadrons,
Yes. No,
because
that was really good.
you're
I
you're
played
you're
that. That
you're
was
flying
amazing.
an X-wing or a TIE fighter, and
Mm.
it's unbelievably cool.
Yeah.
No, I enjoyed that a lot.
Marc,
The
Marc here was kind enough to give me his old headset, but I don't have any of the other
you need the
technology that
lighthouses
goes
and
with it, right?
controllers.
So once
Mm.
I invest like the $1,000 or whatever I have to invest to
I
get
don't
that
think-
stuff.
At
I
this
don't think
point,
it'll
though,
cost you
honestly, you're
1,000.
better
Yeah.
off waiting. We're right on the cusp of a potentially new index coming out, which won't require base stations. It'll all be that inside-out tracking with cameras on the headset to do the location, where you won't need the base stations.
Yeah.
Or you just bite the bullet and go something like the Oculus Quest, even though that, as I say, does require a Facebook account. You can tether it easily back to the PC and buy everything off Steam if you just want to use it as a PC headset. But again, it's cheap, really, really high quality, high pixel density panel, so you can read everything very clearly, and you don't need all that external setup because it's just either a single USB-C cable back to your computer or Wi-Fi if you have a decent home network, which is really good.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just reading Jay Scar's latest comment. Says you can tether the Quest 2 to your machine as long as you have a 6 gig graphics card.
I hadn't heard that
Okay.
restriction previously. Like I've got,
But good
the
luck getting a
official
GPU
link.
right now.
yeah, I've got the official Oculus Link cable that they brought out a year and a half ago now to do that, but they've recently done a native update for wireless play, or there's the a purchasable app that has been doing wireless play on the Quest for ages now called Virtual Desktop, which allows you to just connect back into your Steam and play your VR games wirelessly that way. But yeah, I was lucky enough to get a graphics card before they all went stupid. Admittedly, it is a last gen one. I've got a 2080 Super. I needed to. I knew there was the 30 series coming, but my card died, and I needed to buy a new one. I couldn't wait until they dropped the 30 series.
yeah,
I would've
I have a
liked the
GTX
3080.
1070, and it pretty much still kicks ass.
Yeah. I upgraded from a 980 Ti. Which
Cool.
died.
Well, this has been a fun, if not somewhat random conversation
Yeah,
from
no.
the start to the finish, right?
Printing Marvel in VR.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
This is
no, sure, that's
pretty cool stuff. Do
That's
you,
fine.
if anybody wants to find you in any way, do you have like a social or something
Oh,
through
I'm
something
not
official, like
super-
whatever?
Yeah, I'm not super active on there. I have
Okay.
Twitch streamed in the past and whatnot, but if they want to, they could find me at Spazarus. That's SPAZRUS. If people want to, Twitter and Twitch and stuff, but
So
I'm
I
not
know
super active.
I know you and I linked up on Discord. I will.
Discord!
Yeah, if you don't already have it, I'll send you an invite to our Iron Sysadmin channel on Discord
Sure, yeah,
server,
yeah,
and then
Discord-
people can
Discord's
chat
a
with
good
you
one
that
too.
way. It's probably the easiest way to do
Yep,
it.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah,
do
Marc
that.
always makes fun of how I say the word Discord.
Because he says it wrong half the time.
Only half the
How
time.
do you say it?
I say it Discord.
Versus, how do you say it, Mark?
Discord.
Yeah, he puts the emphasis on dis, where I put the emphasis on cord. So much so that I made a
You're
soundbite.
different.
Discord!
You're both right to me.
Yeah, I think they're both fine, but whatever. All right, so this has been fun. I think we're going to go to a break, and then Josh, you're welcome to stay with us or not. It's completely up to you.
Nah, I should probably go do some real work before my colleagues are like, what the hell are you doing?
That's no fun. Yeah,
Real
he's dissing
whack.
you. Thanks, J Scar. All right, so
Hey.
I'm gonna push the button
Push the button, Frank.
soon.
Hey, before I push the button, Josh, it was a pleasure to meet you. I
Yeah.
hella enjoyed your time with us, and you're welcome
No,
back
thank you for
anytime.
having me. This was fun.
Yeah, this has been a good conversation. All right, so folks, we'll see you in a few minutes. Yeah, we'll be right back.
See yous.
Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. We're back. Did you notice?
I noticed.
I mean, of course you noticed because you're part of the stream and all.
I hope someone.
I would expect you'd notice. I hope the viewers noticed because if they didn't notice, then why are we even here? Like why?
Because it's a podcast and people have downloaded this onto their iDevice or Androids and are listening to us in the future.
In the future, we're speaking to you from the past.
Hi.
I don't know if it's much better.
From the past.
All right. So that was a fun conversation. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know how you feel about printers.
Yeah, but I like Josh. So, and then we talked about Marvel and some and some VR, including
that's fun.
Space games and shit. Yeah, good stuff.
Pretty cool. Cool. All right, so we're up to the part of the show where we do a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to do some announcements, although we don't really have any announcements, but we do have our usual Patreon update. We picked up a new patron, so I'm pretty happy about that. And we have another patron who subscribed at a level to get a t-shirt, which I have to send out yet. And we had the first one who signed up for the level where they get a t-shirt, which I sent out a couple weeks ago now, so they should have it by now. Teespring takes a little bit of time to print it and send it, so theoretically they have it by now. So if you don't have it by now, let me know. But you haven't told me so via Patreon, so...
So many pronouns.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway. Patrons! We've got... I didn't count them, but I'll just list them off here. We got... The new one is I think it's Jeremy. There's, like, funny characters in here. Jeremy. Arinomi, however we decided that's pronounced. Andrew, Tatro, Bruce, Robert, Matt... David, Solemn, there's Marc getting distracted again. Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, gimpyb, Marc with a K, DeMentor, our good friend DeMentor, John the Nice Guy, Marc with a C, Julius, Andi, J, Charles, and can you recite it? Do you know which one the last one is? 22532.
His Christian name, yes, 22532.
So thank you. Yes, thank you to all of you patrons. Very much appreciated. Those of you that I still owe a t-shirt to, I'll get that taken care of soon. And so you should hear from me via Patreon to get that done. And yeah, thanks to all of you.
I have
this
nothing
is awesome.
to do with the t-shirt, so don't complain to me.
No, that you don't. That's all on me. Luckily, Patreon does a good job of reminding me, that it's due.
Yeah.
That I owe
and
them.
Thirsty Gnomes, by the way, is specifically asking for the mysterious Jason's backstory.
Oh, I guess we'll have to get that going. Oh, he's so mysterious.
Bazrus says, "Hey, it's me."
Yeah.
Now I don't know if he's reacting to something you said or he's just,
No,
like
Spazrus. If you maybe you didn't pay attention to Josh's outro there, but that's Josh.
Oh. Oh. Oh, hi, Josh.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Josh. Oh, hi, Marc. You're my best friend. Hi, Johnny. Anyway.
I'm not sure if I want to know where that comes from. I know that.
Room.
Is it from the room? I still haven't watched it. I grabbed it the night you told me that I should or should not watch it, and then I didn't.
You really shouldn't watch it, but you really should. Yeah.
Apparently, Spazrus has watched it because.
You tied me apart. Oh, hi, Josh. I did not hit the. Yeah.
All right, so we don't have any new reviews. Folks, if you left a review and you think we missed it, let me know. Just don't let me know in the same way you left the review because obviously I'm not seeing it.
Captain Obvious here.
So, yeah, I don't think we have any other announcements. DEF CON 610 is doing in-person meetups again. So if you're in the Lehigh Valley here in PA, come on out. First Wednesday of every month.
Yeah, so Josh watched The Room before watching Disaster Artist. That's my son forced me to watch The Room, and I pretty much sat there on the couch in a rage half the time.
And then you infected everybody else? Is that how this happened?
Well, it's like the little videos that mock it and everything are funny. And
There are 2 movies I have a similar experience with. One of them is Lost Highway.
never seen that one.
I watched it solely because Nine Inch Nails was on the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Because for some reason that seemed like a good reason to watch a movie. It's completely
How'd
strange.
that work out for you?
It's not a. I'd have to be honest, to remember much about it. I would have to watch it again because that was 20 years ago or more.
I feel like you're not going to do that.
And I'm probably not. And it really. The soundtrack was better than the movie, much better than the movie. The movie was one of these like completely off the wall, like cerebral things where, like, even if you sat and thought about it for a while, it still didn't make sense.
Oh, just the kind of movies I love.
Yeah, and then the other one was Being John Malkovich.
I don't.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
Malkovich that's one of those movies you hear of and you feel like a bunch of movie critics thought it was like awesome and special, but I've never actually bothered to sit down and watch it. Would I hate it?
Probably.
Like, how's it compare to, like, for instance, Black Widow,
So, I mean, I'll give you the premise of Being John Malkovich. These people find a hole, literally a hole in the ground, and they crawl through it. And when you crawl through the hole, you are now John Malkovich. You're like literally in John Malkovich's like body. You are controlling John Malkovich.
And how's John Malkovich feel about that?
I don't remember. It's that long ago. I don't think he was happy about it.
What happens if more than one person crawls into the hole at a time?
I want to say they addressed that in the movie, but I don't remember.
Huh.
Someone who's watched Being John Malkovich that's also in the chat right now, let us know how that worked out. How did John Malkovich feel about being, John Malkovich in the movie Being John Malkovich? And what happened if 2 people crawled in the hole? That sounds terrible. Oh. Okay, so anyway, we've already gone off on a tangent. This part of the show where we tangent. This is all about the tangents, guys. All right, so Marc, you have anything fun going on?
So after much hemming and hawing, and after Jason pushing me a little, I actually went ahead and I bought my Apple Watch, which I got to be honest, I didn't really know if I'd be into it at all. And now it's like I wouldn't want to not have it.
Now it's part of your life. It's so much part of your life.
Part of my world. Little Mermaid there. No, it's like, at work we talk about like edge computing all the time. And the watch is like an edge computer for my phone. Like just looking at notifications.
Because this isn't edge enough. You need this too.
No, because I don't even have to take my phone out of my pocket. And like if I leave my phone charging on my desk or just leave it on my desk and I walk upstairs.
Your edge device has an edge device. You've extended your edge. Yeah, good job.
I have. Like I can, and it's pretty amazing to me how legible it is, like for reading stuff, for the text and everything. And you can do a total Dick Tracy if someone calls you, you can answer it right on the watch and talk on the watch.
That's the winner right there.
It's pretty cool. And that the primary use case I got it for is the health stuff. And Apple's got this thing with these 3 rings. The Fitbit was all about the steps, and the last Fitbit I got kind of went to hell. This has the total move calories, which is the outer red ring, then the exercise time, which is higher intensity stuff, and then the standing your lazy ass up, at least for a minute or two for 12 hours each day, and then you close the blue ring in the middle. So it's like a little bit of gamification there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Like if I eat something and I want to track it, I can fire up my Fitness Pal on the watch.
See, that's the key.
Use a little dial.
Making all that stuff easy. I after vacation.
Yeah, what? and my favorite child is on here. It actually has you can do the big green egg through the watch.
That's awesome.
I mean, the controller's offline, but you can flip through. Okay, the grill temperature, the meat temperature. all that stuff you can see right from the watch. So if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm doing a cook, I don't even have to fumble for my phone. All I got to do is look on my watch
Yeah.
and see what's going on with the egg.
Yeah, I had decided that so like when the wife and I started running a year ago when the pandemic started, I lost a little bit of weight, like 10 pounds. And I didn't really gain it back, but I also have stopped losing. So I've decided to start trying to do a better job of keeping track of what I eat and whatever. And the biggest problem is that it's inconvenient. And I know that sounds like me whining, right? But it is inconvenient, right? To fire up the app on my phone and to find the thing that I ate and whatever,
then
right?
Get fat and diabetic. No,
sure, right.
No, and the reality, I'm kind of.
My point is having it on your watch there probably makes it a little less inconvenient.
It is less inconvenient. It's really pretty friggin' cool. So I'm now at the point where I don't want to not have an Apple Watch. Did I have the right number of negatives in there? I think I did.
I don't want to not have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean I had an Android Wear device years ago, and to be honest, it did not integrate well into my life.
Well, you can say what you want about Apple, but those sons of bitches know how to UI.
So we tried the Fitbits when we started running because we wanted something to be able to track our runs better than carrying our phones with us. Because face it, phones don't track it as well as a device that can actually check your heart rate. So we got the Fitbits because they were cheaper than Apple Watches. Plus, I don't have an Apple device. And I gotta say, as a fitness tracker, I think it's great. As a watch that tells me the time, I think it's great. As a notification device or an integrated thing into my phone, it's really not that great. So
I can do all that shit. I tap on the date. There's my next meeting for tomorrow. And I can just flip through the meetings for tomorrow. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Show off.
It's so friggin' cool. And again, it's something I didn't even know I wanted.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
I mean,
I love you, Apple Watch.
You get to kiss your wife. You get kissy face with your technology there. Yeah. I mean, as you know, I was an Android user. I've been an Android user for like ever, and then I tried an iPhone for a little while. And then I went back to Android. And to be honest, I feel like I don't love either platform anymore. You know what I mean? I don't love Android anymore, especially because of what Google does. Like, I love Android. I don't love the company behind it. And if you have Android without Google, it's really not great, right? Because you don't have any of the integrations that you get. Yes, so there's alternatives to a lot of this stuff, but
J-Scar, are you talking Apple Watch or just regular or like smartwatch? Like generic smartwatch?
PinePhone for an 8. Yeah, J-Scar. See, the problem with PinePhone or anything that's not a Google Android device is that they feel hampered. They don't have all the integrations, all of the things that make
word to J-Scar.
That make Android useful are the things that are run by Google. And the things that are run by Google are all spying on me, which is what I don't like. I like the integrations, I don't like the spying. Right? I don't love Apple's UI, but I love their stance on privacy and their stance on the fact that you are their customer, not their product, right? So, I don't know. I've been going back and forth about when this phone is ready for replacement, I may go back to iPhone. And if I do, maybe I'll get an Apple Watch, and that'll be the thing that keeps me on iPhone. I don't know.
Dude, I mean, I've given the same speech over and over to my nerd friends. The iPhone to me is an appliance, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to fight with it. And
so is this.
When I started at Red Hat, I did an Android, but it always had this rough edge to it. Always had a bit of a rough edge to it, from my perspective.
Yeah, the Pixel 4 that I have now, it's a really polished, it works really well. I have not messed around with it. I didn't root it or put any other ROM on it or whatever, which is exactly what I used to do to all my old phones. Because I wanted it to be just a functional phone, and it is just that. Right? It works really well. If it weren't for the fact that I always feel like Google is just sort of trying to worm its way into my life, I would not even consider switching. That's really the thing.
They just want to be your special friend.
They want to be a special friend. So, yeah. Anyway. That's my Android rant. I want to love Android. I want to hate Google. In fact, I do kind of hate Google.
AirTag. Why does Josh hate AirTags?
I don't know what that is. Is that like a skin tag? Those are annoying.
It's a tracking device you can put in your luggage or on your keys or whatever to find it with your phone.
Somebody is watching me. It's Google. That's true. Anyway, that is my conundrum. Which expensive computer do I carry around in my pocket? That's the biggest problem in my life right now.
Yeah. And then
yeah, what's an Atlas?
An Atlas, Volkswagen Atlas. It's it's an SUV. So I got I'm leasing a 2021 Atlas, which has so much tech in it that it's scary. The cruise control. Let me tell you about the cruise control. You flip on the cruise control, and it's the adaptive one.
Mm-hmm.
Where I actually tested this. I get off the highway. First of all, you set the distance, and it adjusts your speed to keep a distance from the car in front of you.
Yeah,
which is really cool, right? I've rented cars before that do that, and I'm like, man, I wish I had a car that does that. Now I do. I get off the highway. I set the cruise for 45 miles an hour because I'm on 191. We're coming up to a red light, and I'm using all of my willpower to keep my foot off of the gas or the brake. The car stops itself behind the car in front of me at the light.
Yeah.
It goes to 0 and stops.
Nice. That's cool.
The light goes green, and I just tap the accelerator with my right foot. The cruise control re-engages and brings me up to 45 just as soon as it can once the car in front of me has accelerated.
That's cool.
It also apparently, if I get too close to something, it will slam on the brakes on its own. But I haven't tested that.
Right.
Because
yeah, well,
God
I mean,
forbid it doesn't.
Those are, I don't know if I'd want to test that, but it would be a nice thing to have in an event that you need it, right?
But
those are neat features, and they're becoming more and more standard because government regulations are starting to mandate a bunch of safety features like that, like the backup cameras, for example. That was a government mandate because too many people were backing over pets and children. As grim as that is, right? People can't be trusted to operate their own vehicles anymore, so they have to add in all these things to make sure that they can't hurt other people with them.
My dream situation is a car that one of these days, and my daughter's boyfriend has a Tesla, and it's damn close. I just get in the car, and the friggin' thing drives itself, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So this thing has, but it can go full manual if you want. So the Volkswagen has CarNet, which lets me lock and unlock the doors, lets me start it from my phone, gives me the mileage, estimated mileage remaining, gives me vehicle health output. So it shows, it gives red, green, yellow on the driver assistance systems, the transmission and powertrain, the tires and brakes, tells me miles or days to the next service. And then it's got Navigate, which has a friggin' map that shows where the car is. So the other day I was pissing my wife and daughter off because I saw they parked next to Five Guys. I'm like, you guys are at Five Guys? They're like, no, we went to So Fun. It was just easier to park there. That's creepy. But like, it's so cool.
So instead of Google tracking you, Volkswagen is.
Well, the service is CarNet.
CarNet is tracking you.
Yeah, and you can opt in to like have it tracked for insurance purposes, which I'm not doing. But it's cool. It's cool. A lot of tech in the car. That's cool. It's got the thing where you stop and it shuts the engine off. If it decides it can shut the engine off, and it instantly restarts. How do they do that? How come it has to go rah, 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 to start from the beginning, but it can instantly start running again when it's right? They must keep something going.
It has to do with compression, if I remember correctly. The engine's compression. It uses the compression to restart. Sort of like in the old days when you had a manual and you would coast start it. If you couldn't start it otherwise, you could drift start.
I know how to do that. I've done that.
Yeah.
I've had cars where I've had to do that.
Yeah. From what I understand, it's a similar thing, except there's an electric motor, sort of like your starter, that does the drift part, right?
No, it's really cool, and you can turn that off if you don't like it. But
Yeah.
I like it. 'Cause I
Yeah,
figure
that's the newer Jeeps have the same thing, and it's an emissions, they're not emissions thing. It's a fuel economy thing, right? So
yeah,
turning
'cause
off
gas
the
is
engine,
expensive.
turning off the engine at a stoplight saves a minuscule amount of gas, but apparently that's enough that they get just enough out of it that they can help meet the stricter government standards for fuel
Well,
efficiency.
if you're sitting in traffic enough, it probably saves more than just a little bit. My God. So anyway, yeah, but car is fantastic. Really.
Yeah,
was.
I'm more of an old-fashioned person when it comes to vehicles, simply because I have a passion for vehicles, for certain vehicles anyway.
Yeah, I
But
get that, but I was never. I got a lot of that out of my system when I drove the ghetto jet in college, and would use duct tape and hit parts of it to make it work. I'm kind of tired of that. I want my car to be an appliance too, and I want it to be a really nice appliance.
yeah, yeah, I'm not to the point where I want my car to be an appliance. Well, I don't know, maybe like the normal dependable car should be an appliance, but I still like to pilot a vehicle. You know what I mean?
Oh, you can pilot the crap out of the Atlas if you want to. You can lean on the systems if you want, or you can pilot it manually if you want.
Yeah,
And I'm still trying to figure out all it can do. It's pretty cool.
yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm torn about the subject of extra technology in cars, mainly because I like to work on my own vehicles, and the more technology they throw in there, the harder that becomes.
Well, sure. That's a legitimate, that whole right to repair thing.
Yeah, yeah, and
That's
it's
a
like
legit,
it's like
legit concern.
they're not actively trying to prevent you in some cases. It's just that the technology has made it more complicated, so you need like certifications and whatnot to be able to work on a vehicle.
I I get that, but to me, it's worth it. And I guess, I mean, can't you still buy cars that are more, classic that way? Like not
Sort
as
of.
crazy and high tech.
Like at the moment you can, but it's getting harder. Just like it's harder to find a manual transmission. If you like to drive a manual transmission, they're getting hard to find.
I can drive stick, and I've owned multiple cars that are stick. My wife doesn't drive stick, and I'm kind of again, I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, yeah, and I know Derek might be listening and be judging me,
right.
but
You don't like manual. I love driving manual. I don't love driving manual every day. Now that I work from home, I would seriously consider replacing. Well, I don't know if I'd replace my Jeep with a manual, but I consider buying another manual vehicle just because I don't have to drive it 40 miles one way every day because it does get kind of tedious.
if I do a proper midlife crisis car like a bright red convertible or something, I would do a
That'll be
stick.
manual.
Or my God, the time that they upgraded me to a Charger at Enterprise, holy shit!
We got a charger
Ooh.
for our trip to DerbyCon one year, and it was just like we're gonna get arrested on the way to DerbyCon.
I couldn't own a Charger. I'd lose my license.
Yeah.
That car was so much fun.
And this was like the 4-door sedan version of the Charger. It wasn't even the
Doesn't
sporty
matter.
Charger,
The
and it was
thing
like
has
rah!
giant balls.
Pretty
Giant
awesome.
balls.
Pretty
Giant
awesome.
car balls. Yeah, so that's those are tech related, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with me from a nerd perspective. On a personal perspective, my daughter leaves for Korea next Thursday. The
Yeah.
good one, South Korea. Yeah, she's going to be there for at least a year. She's going to be teaching English to tiny Korean children. So take basically then she'll come back and pick up grad school for chemistry. Her advisor said that it wouldn't be a problem. They
Cool.
wouldn't hold that against her. She like got a 4.0 in chemistry. Well, she got a 4.0 from Seton Hall. Like
That's cool.
smart kid, actually worked hard.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm a little sad about that, I will say. But,
That she's going out of the country and you won't see her for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's digital, obviously, like before the 4th of July, I hadn't seen you in person.
Yeah,
And-
for like
and
what,
there's
18
so
months or something?
And there's a gajillion Red Hatters I've never met in person who I consider, who I'm close with. So, the technology can certainly close those gaps, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not quite the same.
No, it definitely isn't the same. It's not the same. Being able to get together and drink with somebody is something I really miss since the beginning of the the pandemic, and I've had a couple chances to do that in the past month or so, and it's really nice.
It looks like the New York Red Hat users group might be able to meet in October. We're
That's
pushing
cool.
hard for that to happen.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Maybe we'll get up there.
Hell, I'm going. Whether you're going or not, I'll be there. I'm gonna hug the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. I don't even know if I remember what floor we have to go up to.
24.
There we go. Anybody who's trying to OPSEC the Red Hat offices in New York.
Whatever.
I'm pretty sure it's public.
They have to get past the guys downstairs who are classic New York security guards. They won't let them by.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Those guys are hard noses. All right.
So anyway, you may have noticed, like, you've heard me talk about this thing probably on 3, maybe 4 episodes
Constantly.
that I'm building this Hex Lamp. Do you notice what's behind me?
It's your fedora. It's the Firefly ship. It's your Doom poster, and then there's some plastic crap on your wall that seems to be glowing.
The Hex Lamp is working.
I can see that.
It's pretty cool. I think
it does look kind of cool.
It's the downside is it's not bright enough that you can see it during the day or even when the normal lights are on in the office, because the sun is bright enough that it causes too much glare. But it's there and it's working. It's pretty cool. Yeah, cursed sun, right?
It could do all different colors, I assume.
Yeah. So hold on, I have it linked up to Home Assistant.
Of course you do.
Which is what I've said I'm going to do with it. But you can make it solid colors, but that's boring, right? What it's doing right now is called fire, and if you're in person, you can see it better. Right now, it just kind of looks like a red glow, doesn't it? Over on the side here is like a yellow glow, and then it goes red, and they kind of fan out as though it's flame.
Yeah, I can see that effect.
Which is kind of cool. But yeah, I can let's see here. Here, let's try color twinkles. There you go. Isn't that neat? These are all presets that came with. There's this software called WLED, which runs on these little.
Sounds like a radio station.
Yeah, right. On these little ESP8266 boards, which I would have pulled one out, but I didn't think of. They're just these little tiny controller boards, kind of like an Arduino. That there's one inside of there, right? And I flashed it with WLED, and this is like what it does right out of the box. I've done 0 coding to make this work. There you go, little rainbow effect.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection.
This is called
Nate's
Circus.
Office wall.
Yeah, right. Right. Candy cane. We'll try candy cane. Doesn't look like candy cane. Whatever. But they're neat, and it's basically just a 5 meter. Yes, 5 meter. RGB LED strip that's in there, all coiled up inside of those little hexes, and they're white 3D printed lenses on the front, so they kind of just diffuse some of the light. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's a fun little thing, and it's going to be in the background there on all of our shows going forward until it catches fire or falls off the wall or something.
Or the dog eats it.
Or the dog eats it. Yeah. Yeah. So I did have some trouble getting it to work because I bought these I bought these other controller boards that on the recommendation of actually the mentor. It's all his fault. But
oh boy.
They, for whatever reason, when I powered them off the power brick that's plugged into the wall that powers the thing, because I don't want it just powered off USB, they would basically crash and reboot. Right? I don't know why I was doing it. I couldn't figure it out. So I ended up switching to the other boards that I had initially bought, and there it goes. It works. So yeah, pretty cool. It's now a permanent part of the lighting in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing is, since they're just these generic LED strips, you can theoretically put them anywhere. You can get a little tiny 1-foot LED strip and put it underneath the cabinets in your kitchen or something, just for light for the countertop. All kinds of cool uses for it. So yeah, that's my Hex Lamp. I like it.
Famous Hex Lamp.
I like it. Yeah, famous. It is kind of famous. And the other thing I'm doing also with the 3D printer is I don't even know how I came down this rabbit hole. So you guys remember I printed out that ball jointed doll, which
creepy doll, yeah.
Which I'm still working on painting, by the way. I knew that was going to be a pain in the butt, But I'm obsessed with trying to get the surface of the doll smooth before we paint it, because it should be smooth, right? You know how 3D prints have like lines on it? Yeah, right. So that has not gone well. So it's not painted or assembled yet or anything. But
you'd be better off, rather than trying to smooth it,
buying a doll.
Better off using using some sort of primer coat.
No, exactly. I had automotive primer from another project, which automotive primer is generally filler primer, which is exactly what I need. Well, it's not filling well enough. So I just like today they came in the mail. I got 2 cans of a different brand of high build filler primer, and that's what I'm going to try to use on it this time.
On the creepy doll.
On the creepy doll. But anyway, that leads to my wife likes the anime Sailor Moon.
Deck.
What's that?
Andy's like, sand the deck, wax on, wax off. On the creepy doll.
My wife likes the anime Sailor Moon, so I actually went searching for a model of Sailor Moon that we could just print out and she can put in her craft room, right? Obviously, it would have to be painted or whatever. And I ended up finding a site that does professional, like, collectible figurine 3D models. And for like $4 or something, you buy this model and then you print it out. That was printed out in like, I don't know, a dozen pieces or so that you then super glued together. And it came out really awesome. So I thought, I like collectible things too. So I went and found another model there's a comic I liked back in the 90s called Witchblade. There's an anime series that goes along with it too.
I've heard of Witchblade, yeah.
Okay. So I'm currently in the process of trying to... So this was my first attempt, and it got far enough, but I don't love how the finish came out. This is a Witchblade model, Sarah Pazzini, who's the heroine from Witchblade. But I printed it with black PLA, so it's really difficult to see like the because
it's really difficult to see because the window's very small too, and it's a little chunky.
Right, for you it's hard to see, but for me, for painting it, it's hard to see. So I'm now actually in the process of reprinting the stuff I printed and glued together already in gray PLA, which you can see all the details a lot easier for painting. So that's what I'm working on now. Good. So that's my latest thing. And then I need shelves to put this stuff on. So that'll be another project.
So you're gonna print some shelves?
No, I'll just like Jason and his ongoing shelf project. It took him a year to get those shelves behind his you see behind him when he's in his office. I want to build shelves that go like around the upper edge of the office, and that'll be that.
I just bought the 16 cube case myself.
I could do that, but I don't have floor space to set it up. I'd have to rearrange. I could certainly rearrange the office to do that.
It's not floor space. You need an empty wall.
Oh, that mounts to the wall?
Well, it's up against the wall.
But it still requires floor space against the wall.
It needs like a foot of wall.
Right. Do you see any wall space behind me?
Well, I don't see the whole room. I occasionally see daughters and dogs in your life.
Right. Right. So
I don't know what you got.
This room's pretty. The walls of this room are pretty cluttered, but
I'll trust you on that.
The 1 foot above, from the ceiling down is not. So I'm gonna make a shelf that runs around the whole room. I may even light it with LEDs, which would be kind of cool.
Of course you will.
Well, yeah, I have the ability now. Why wouldn't I?
You're gonna put LEDs on everything. There'll be LEDs on the kids. There'll be LEDs
on
the dog.
LEDs on the frames of my glasses.
Just don't put LEDs. Don't do something cheesy with your Jeep and LEDs.
No,
that would be totally ghetto.
Yeah, totally. I would never do that.
Now, I did in the '80s have one of those license plates that when you hit the brake, the license plate would do the spinning lights around the end.
Of course you would. It sounds very much like an Uncle Marc thing.
It was. It was so cheesy.
Nate, have you looked at the XTC 3D high performance 3D print coating on Amazon? No, I haven't. I'll have to do that now. Is this like a primer for 3D prints?
I would.
Because
sounds like
one of the problems, and maybe you won't be able to see this on the video, but you see where she's 2 pieces here, right? Where the 2 pieces join, I've cut her in half. There's a little bit of a seam there, and I need something to fill that. Because on the one that I have started painting, you can still see the seam. Maybe you can't see it on the thing.
Tragic.
But yeah. tragic indeed. When I was younger, I used to do modeling, not like modeling, but like model
Like
airplanes.
your mom didn't take you to like places and strange
Like-
men would take pictures of
Like
you?
model airplanes and model cars and stuff like that. Like,
course.
you know, as many young
Right.
people do.
Of
And
course.
this
The-
is
the
this is very
planes
much
and
this is a very
models that-
similar.
came on the. You probably did the nuclear submarine with the cutaway view.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I used to do
they
stuff like
ca-
that.
The,
So
the pieces came on the plastic.
yeah, and the
on
plastic printout thing, we had to cut them out.
Yeah, or break them out or whatever.
Yeah, I
and
still
then
have my
You always.
my
They had
X-Acto
the,
knife
they had
to
the,
do so
the
with.
shitty decals.
Yeah, the decals that you had to make wet, and then
I miss those kits.
right. See, that's what I mean, right? So this
I
kind of
always got-
scratches
and I-
that itch, right? Except it's now I don't know.
I was
It's
always
fun.
I was probably too impatient to actually work on them, but
I've been enjoying it. So here's a head. It's like a disembodied.
Head on a spike.
I have. These are like several prints of the torso that didn't quite come out right.
The mutant.
This is how my desk looks right now. Here's another version of the head.
Yeah, no, we've had when 3D printing goes wrong, it's like a terrible transporter accident. It's really something.
I had one just last night. I was actually trying to. This version of the head came out really well, but the top is where the supports were because I printed it this way. And there's like little ripples in the hair, and I wanted to try to print it again this way. So I ran that last night while I was sleeping, and of course, it fell over halfway through and just
Yeah.
molten
so
plastic everywhere.
This might seem kind of weird and random. Are we supposed to be doing a home lab on 3D printing for the accelerators? Didn't that come up as a thing?
Maybe,
Josh, you might have been there.
maybe.
Or was that GCS Connect?
I don't remember. Do not remember.
J-Scar, don't leave yet. Don't leave yet, J-Scar.
You have to answer the question.
Oh. I think it was GCS Connect, which is an internal Red Hat call. I think.
Epoxy
One of the
coating
guys
for
want
3D
us to
printing
wanna-
objects, smooth.
Are you going to
3D
be
print
around
objects.
tomorrow?
Am I going to be around tomorrow? Yeah, I'll be around tomorrow.
Yeah, J-Scar, was it
Just write him an email, man. So anyway, while you're typing feverishly to JScar, I think we should probably move along into the news because I think we literally just spent 45 minutes chatting.
Yeah, so come to GCS Connect tomorrow, Nate, ready to talk about 3D printing.
Absolutely. And then people will judge me for the
Oh,
strange...
that's right. Captain Morgan wants to buy a 3D printer for his kids, but doesn't want to get ripped off or buy something total garbage.
People will judge me for painting a half-naked woman. My witchblade.
Maybe.
Anyway. All right, I think we're going to move along into the news, and I think the news is going to be covered about as thoroughly as it usually is. So, there's that.
Well, the internet was on fire today. Oh.
Goodbye, J-Scar. We will see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I linked a bunch of news. I don't know how much of this we're going to cover in depth because some of it was, honestly, I was just pulling in news for the sake of getting some news in here. There's one I want to talk about.
On the day the internet was on fire.
On the day the internet was on fire. Yeah, so maybe we'll talk about that first. It's the last one in the list, and this is from the Internet Storm Center, isc.sans.edu. Right. Lost in the cloud, Akamai DNS outage. Now, I didn't get the details specifically about the outage, but apparently Akamai DNS, which if you're not familiar, is a DNS caching provider that a whole lot of people depend on to get DNS resolutions. And you know what happens to the internet when DNS resolutions that a lot of people depend on are suddenly gone?
Shit stops working.
Like everything stops working. And apparently that happened today. So I'd love to talk more in depth about what happened and what sort of weird outages. I think we saw an outage, didn't we? At work.
Oh God, yeah, we lost.
Yeah.
We did because we've used Akamai for a lot of our external stuff for a long time.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say, let this be a lesson. To diversify your DNS resolvers. When you depend on one provider for your DNS resolution, things like this can happen and really hurt.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to be snarky and be like, this is what happens when you put everything in the cloud. But honestly...
No, I mean, I used to be that guy that was snarky whenever a cloud provider had a problem. But honestly, in today's world, there's so many things that are dependent on the cloud. If you architect them properly and you utilize them properly, it's really not a problem. Because, face it, cloud providers do not often have major sweeping problems like this. But they do. And when they do, you need to have a diversified configuration so that, you know, if Akamai is down, you fall over to some other DNS resolver, right? Or DNS provider.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I just usually point at Google.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Google can track all your DNS queries.
Whatever. I use my IDM server to do DNS in my home lab.
Yeah,
I point that to 8888 as the upstream, or whatever the proper term is, the forwarding, whatever.
Resolver, right? I think is the word we're looking for.
Well, no, DNS. It's the forwarding zone. Like if the IPA server doesn't have the entry in unclemarc local, it then reaches out to Google.
Yeah, that is your resolver's resolver, I guess is the way to put that. It's not an authoritative server. I guess, forward. I don't know.
Forward zone. I think it's is it a forward zone?
No, so
I'm bad at DNS.
I'm
probably doing it wrong.
A forward zone isn't forward in the way that you're thinking of it. That's a forward resolution, which is resolving a name to a IP address. And then there's reverse resolutions, which are resolving an IP to a name. Right. But yeah, forwarding queries. There's another name for that, but it's escaping my memory at the moment. Maybe that is the word for it, and it's just confusing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, because in IT, of course, we never overload words.
Never
use them for multiple.
Never.
things.
And DNS
sometimes even in the same application for service.
DNS, I had a really solid understanding of DNS when I was a sysadmin because I managed DNS, and I have managed DNS for a very long time. For both personal and enterprise level, projects. But I haven't done that since I came to Red Hat, so it's getting a little dusty.
Oh, I'm a terribly hacky I'm bad with DNS.
No, I had a pretty damn deep understanding of it at one point, but it's a little rusty now. So anyway, Akamai had some problems. It was not good. Move that to the top of the news list here, so that you guys, so that we're in the right order, because that's important. We have to be organized around here.
So
if we're not organized, what are we?
All little niggling details aside, it was a pretty big deal, and a lot of people couldn't do a lot of stuff on the internet today. And it makes you remember fondly the days when you could use a computer that didn't require to be on a network to be useful.
That's funny. Yeah. We just, as you know, we just came back from vacation, and when I was on vacation, we only had like a 3-hour drive to get to where we went for vacation. But, kids in a 3-hour drive is a lot different than a bunch of adults in a 3-hour drive. So I had set up a Raspberry Pi running Kodi, and I loaded it up with a bunch of media from my Plex server. And then we wired it into the displays that are in the Cadillac, which I talked about a couple months ago that we picked up, because there's 2 displays in there. One of the reasons we got it was for this trip. So the kids got to watch movies, but they're like, why can't we watch Netflix? Like, because we're on the road and there's no internet. I mean, theoretically there could have been internet, but I wasn't going to go that deep with them. And they're like, well, why can't we watch Disney Plus? Because that requires internet. It's like they had no concept of not being connected to the internet.
Right.
So, yeah. Regardless of the fact that they had like 150 movies at their disposal. No. They want Netflix.
Well, the Atlas apparently has a wireless access point
Mm-hmm.
that you can have it. You can basically have it use your phone's connection,
Yeah, I could have done
so
that.
that the vehicle passengers can just attach to
Yep.
your wireless access point.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I handled this with the Raspberry Pi was it stood up a little access point so that I had one of my old phones to use as the remote because you needed some way to tell it what to play and whatever. Um,
Gotcha.
but to use cellular data to stream Netflix would get expensive quick.
Depends on your plan. but
Depends on your
see
plan.
what
I don't have an unlimited plan because I'm one of those stodgy holdouts.
Stodgy holdout.
No, there's a good reason, but I won't go into it now.
Do you have a landline in your house?
No, we don't have. Well, technically,
then
we
you're
have
Then you're not
a
that stodgy.
yeah.
Don't get technical.
We
You
have a
can just stop
VoIP.
talking.
We have a VoIP landline in the house, which is because one of our children does not have a cell phone yet, and the thought was if that child needs to like call for help, they need a way to do so.
All right.
It'll
that's
go
half
away
Stodgy.
then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Akamai. I don't know how we got from Akamai to the Kodi server in my Cadillac, but
We talked about there was a day when
Now
you
you're gonna
didn't need a
trace it.
network connection on your computer for it to be useful.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know what the root cause of the Akamai outage was. I haven't I don't know if they're really saying what it was yet. Um do we know does anyone in chat know what the root cause of the failure was? All I heard is it probably was not an attack.
Yeah. We'll find out tomorrow. Russia will claim, responsibility for it. Some weird Russian hacking team that's trying to extort Bitcoin from power companies or something.
Someone just probably forgot to restart some daemons, and
That's it. That's it.
there's
Oh
some
man,
fat-
the cron job that restarts the DNS resolvers in the right sequence didn't fire.
or there was a misconfiguration, and they
Yeah.
didn't do code as they did something by hand that should have been automated.
No, right? So this happened to, was it Amazon, the Amazon S3 outage that happened like 5 years ago or something, 4 years ago. It was, they had written a playbook and they fired it off against a ton of their S3 infrastructure, and the playbook had an error in it. I wonder if it's going to be something like that. That's the way to take down a cloud.
Right. Well, I had a bash script that was supposed to unmount NFS shares back when I was at Merck, and there was this really weird ass edge case bug, but because of the server, because of the server it was running on, it ended up unmounting all of the production NAS shares from the intranet servers.
Oops.
Not yeah, it was
You don't need those.
and it was like, oh my god, I would have never thought that would happen and would have never tested for it. My director was super understanding. He's like, yeah, that kind of stuff happens. I get it.
That's when you know you've got a good boss.
He wasn't John Zettler. I'll name his name. John Zettler was a great guy. I was ready to be friggin' fired, and he was like, "Yeah, you do good work, Mark. It's not a big deal." I because I explained to him exactly what happened. I walked him through it. I'm like, "Wow, that is friggin' weird."
Having
Okay.
a boss that understands that level is really helpful, right?
I don't even know if he understood it, but he understood. He was patient and listened enough as I was walking him through it that he could tell, and he could tell I was a bit of a nervous wreck about it.
When I was at the college and I caused that big Rev outage, which turned out, I call it Rev was down, but the VMs that it hosted were not. That was one of those moments where I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be looking for a job. But I just came clean. I made a mistake. I described it and then I buckled down to fix it. I didn't just leave it to somebody else, and that really, I assume that's what you did too. You didn't try to blame it on somebody else.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I immediately was working with our level 1 and level 2 guys to get all the stuff, return everything to service.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of those career-defining events, or could have been, right? But yeah, it worked out okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So Andy's that confirmed? Let's see here. Software configuration update triggered a bug in the DNS system. Upon rolling back, the services resume normal operations. All right.
Yep, software configuration update. That's a playbook when went awry.
Although it says it triggered a bug in the DNS system, so
yeah.
There's actually a customer case for one of my customers where they did some patching and it updated the DHCP stuff and it was causing issues with Docker and Jenkins.
Docker.
And it's been kind of weird to try and figure it out, but it looks like might have something to do with the updated versions. It's trying to do something on the IPv6 interface. Where it's not doing that on the older version. So I'm going to try and have him disable IPv6 and see if it fixes it.
But you don't need that crap anyway.
No,
nobody's using that.
It. Yeah. And Andy knows the customer I'm talking about. Anyway.
So anyway, Akamai was down. Config error. All right, so I've got a more lighthearted news article here for the next one.
Lighthearted.
So, you ever like go to a website that autoplays media, or like you have a website open in a tab that periodically restarts media, and all of a sudden it starts playing something, and you're like, God, where the hell is it?
That was the worst in an office, especially if you accidentally. There was this one site that I ended up following the link, and some smartass had this thing that played at full volume.
Hey, I'm looking at porn over here.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
And I wasn't.
Yeah, right. And it's like, oh, you son of a. So apparently, Microsoft Edge is finally killing off one of the worst things about being online. This is from Tech Radar, and that's it. They're working on some kind of an extension or whatever built into Edge, as much as it pains me to say that. That will let you disable autoplay. It seems so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I wonder if Brave can do that out of the
You
box.
would think that every browser should have a checkbox in it that says, turn this crap off, it's annoying. But no!
I mean, I don't care now because I'm in my home office, so...
Oh, yeah, right. Now it's not annoying at all. But the number of... now it's moved to mobile apps, right?
In front of
Right.
Oh, has it?
Now it's moved to mobile apps, right? You get a mobile app that's free, quote unquote free, that's ad supported. And then you get those ads that come in blaring with like some kind of a stupid ad or whatever. And it's like, I don't mind looking at the ad, but can you not be so freaking noisy? Because then you just
that's a good way to make me stop using that app.
Yes.
At all.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But I mean, the app developer doesn't generally have any control over what ads are being displayed. He's just part of an ad network, you know?
Well, he should pick a less shitty ad network.
Yes, pick a less obtrusive or intrusive ad network. So anyway, yeah, that's a thing that's coming to Edge, and I'd imagine if Edge is doing it, it's going to come to others as well. I can't believe this isn't already a feature. Maybe it is in some way, but maybe they're making it easier. I don't know. So yeah, autoplay. So long. We won't miss you.
Bye bye autoplay. See you. Bye bye.
Yeah.
I never liked autoplay when you put a CD in a Windows machine. I always thought that was stupid.
Yeah, because that's the autoplay of applications on CDs was also like a big security vulnerability at one point. People would put malware in the auto run directory on a CD, and then you'd plug it in, and all of a sudden you'd be infected with malware. Kind of annoying because nobody can write a CD. Only trusted vendors can write CDs with autoplays on them, right?
That lasted maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. It was one of the first things I would turn on. Like, I had this checklist of things I would do to every Windows 95 machine when I would build it. Turning off auto run was one of them.
Yeah. Nowadays, you just make an Ansible playbook.
Right.
Or your template would have the settings.
Right. You kidding me? You're going to install Windows 95 with a template? I don't think that's even possible. Except Ghost. You could ghost it.
Yeah.
Remember
Swayze.
Remember Norton Ghost? Yeah, right. That kind of Ghost.
Ghost was our recovery system at Merc for the desktops.
Yep. Yeah, we used
it. Not even our recovery, was how we imaged them.
We used it to image desktops when we were at when I was at AccuFind.
Ghost.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Let's see if I can get through the rest of these without taking up too much time.
Yeah.
Unlikely, right? The next one is from Tom's Hardware. Microsoft quietly releases its own Linux distro. So you may be aware that Microsoft runs a cloud, and running Windows on a cloud might have sounded like a good idea at first, but let's face it, clouds run on Linux.
Like a good idea.
Yeah, right. Clouds run on Linux. So apparently Microsoft has their own Linux distro now. They're calling CBL-Mariner. Mariner? Released under the MIT license, open source MIT license. And Linux. Microsoft has a Linux distribution now.
So
Steve Ballmer is probably having nightmares over this. Mr. Linux is a cancer.
So Microsoft might have released this, but according to some inside baseball info that I have, Microsoft has at least a half a dozen internal Linux distributions too that they haven't released.
Oh, I don't doubt it. But this one's released now.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah.
Working as intended.
Right, working as intended.
I mean, last time I was at Summit, Microsoft CEO sat on the stage with Jim Whitehurst.
Yep. Oh yeah, they're a different company now than they were back in the Linux as a cancer days.
Back in Ballmer. Yeah, in Ballmer.
Totally different company. It's one of those things that when you've been around this industry like you and I have, you more than me, you remember the old Microsoft. Right, and you remember that this.
I feel like he just called me old. No, I do remember.
Well, no, that's a nod to your experience, man. You've been in IT longer than me.
No, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong. Back when people thought that maybe OS2 would knock Windows off the throne.
Yeah, right, and Linux desktop.
It was never going to happen.
No, and it wasn't. Let's see here.
I remember when Apple almost died more than once.
Yeah. Oh, that's something I didn't talk about in chat. You remember the eMac? The educational iMac?
Yeah.
I managed to get my hands on one. I have a friend who used to work in IT for a high school, and we were cleaning out his old house because he was putting it up on the market, and it was just like laying there. He was going to throw it in the scrap pile. And I'm like, sure, I'll take that thing. So it's in my basement. Some folks are saying that if you clean this thing up, it's actually worth something. People actually want these because they were not available to the general public.
There is a very interesting community of old computer hardware folk.
Yeah.
Think like Apple IIs and old Macintoshes and stuff like that. There's a community of folk who will buy that hardware.
Yeah. So this thing is It's the old iMac frame. If you remember the iMac, the fishbowl Macs. Yeah.
Yeah, the bubbly ones.
Yeah.
What color is it?
It's white because it's an eMac. The eMacs, I think, were all white. Maybe they weren't all white, but this one's white.
I think they defaulted those to white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically dusty and it smells a bit of mold because the house was basically abandoned for 2 or 3 years when my friend's brother passed away. So which I think is why he wanted to just pitch everything because he didn't want to, it hurt. It hurt for him to be there in this house.
Right.
But anyway, he wanted to just throw the thing away. I'm like, I'll take it. I also got a nice ice chipper. That's neither here nor there, but that was another thing that was at the house that I got.
The ice chipper.
I needed an ice chipper. Mine broke last year.
Is it Apple or Android, the ice chipper?
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, and a chess set. They had a chess set. It looks like it's meant to look like they're ivory chess pieces, but they're plastic. But it's I don't care. It's not. I don't want it because it's like a collector's thing. I just wanted a chess set. I don't have one. So I have a chess set. I got to learn how to play chess.
Yeah. So the ice chipper's for the doll.
Yeah.
The creepy doll.
For when it comes to life and tries to kill us. Yes.
Fantastic.
Anyway, the rest of the articles. All right, so there's one. This one's a little bit older. It's from July 17th.
The ice chipper.
Yeah, the ice chipper.
Get to the chipper.
Disable your Windows print spooler, or you could be hacked. There may be a fix already for this, but there's apparently an exploit in the Windows print spooler. This is from TechSpot. If
they
you run
fixed that shit very quickly.
Did they fix it?
I remember reading it, and
Okay.
and there was a security patch. I think the same day.
Yeah, I saw it. Well, this is like the day before I left for vacation.
And because
Right,
I
so-
have to have a printer, yeah, I patched it.
July 17th. No, was that? I'm losing track of days. That's the day. That's the day I came back from vacation.
I don't know.
Anyway, why don't you keep track of my schedule for me? Come on.
I don't have a hard enough time keeping track of my schedule. Are you kidding me?
That's valid. That's valid. So anyway, yeah, the Windows print spooler had a vulnerability. Maybe it's fixed already. If you've got Windows servers or systems in general, update them.
I mean, you should always friggin' update Windows. You should update. You should at least set Windows to update automatically once a week.
Yeah.
Or check for updates once a week. Mine
Yep.
does it like at but o'clock in the morning on Wednesdays.
Yep. And this last one I've included just because I like Nextcloud, because I like what they stand for and I like what they do. But there's a new release of Nextcloud Talk, which is a video conferencing add-on for Nextcloud. If you don't know what Nextcloud is, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it's basically a private Google Docs almost that you can host yourself and host files in.
Oh, okay.
They have a bunch of other extensions like Nextcloud Talk, which is a conferencing software, completely self-hosted, which is kind of cool. You can self-host this. I run my own on a DigitalOcean droplet. I mainly used it for photo sharing, but I have tinkered with Nextcloud Talk, and it's pretty cool. But there's a new release. It's got Outlook integration, which is kind of cool.
Look out!
I want to see Nextcloud succeed, because I like the fact that it's self-hosted, essentially self-hosted Google Docs. The problem is, like with many self-hosted solutions, it's not quite there.
And it requires too much expertise.
It does.
And a lot of people just don't want to go through the
Right.
pain in the ass.
So
of it.
I want to see it succeed so that it gets the momentum that it needs to be a actual replacement for Google Docs. Because I would like it to be a replacement for Google Docs, and I would like everyone to be able to benefit from that. Although I know a lot of people just don't care. They're just going to use Google Docs because it's there, and they can just fire up the app on their phone, and off they go. But that's just me, you know. I've had the same opinion since, like, the late 90s when I got into Linux. I want people to have the power to do this stuff on their own if they want to. And even for someone like me who can do it themselves because they have the expertise, it's still a pain in the ass. And that's unfortunate. I don't know. I didn't mean to go off on a diatribe there, but is diatribe the right word? I think it is.
Sure. It's close.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's all the news I had for tonight. Did you have anything you wanted to bring up tonight, Mark?
No.
You look
we
like
talk
you're
about Akamai.
You look like you're getting tired.
I am tired. I'm a little tired.
I have a podcast to edit after this.
Better you than me.
Better.
Little Star Wars callback there.
Right.
Better her than me. She's rich. Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. So let's see here. Let me get to the. I'm supposed to read the closing stuff here, aren't I?
I mean,
Do I really have to? I mean, everyone knows, right?
find us on LiveJournal.
Find us on LiveJournal.
MySpace.
Well, folks, this is the end. All right. So thank you, folks, for watching live. If you watched live, if you're listening to the show, thanks for listening.
All the kissies.
After the fact. Yes, thank you to all of you. Thank you to our patrons for being patrons. If you want to watch us live, you can do so on Twitch or YouTube on the second and fourth Thursday.
And even Facebook.
Roughly.
If you can tolerate Mark Zuckerberg's ugly Android face.
Even Facebook. Nobody watches from Facebook, by the way. I don't even know why I bother to keep doing it, but I do.
You're stubborn.
Yep. You can find us on socials, on the Facebook and the Twitter. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Go to IronSysadmin.com to find all the crap I just talked about, or to join our Discord community if you'd like to.
Discord.
Did I say it right? No, I said it wrong.
I was going to give you a pass.
I'm going to try to put no emphasis on either of the syllables and see what you do.
Discord.
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 It's Discord.
Discord. I don't know if that's no emphasis, but it's funny.
Discord! Right. So I think that's everything, folks. Thanks for watching, listening, or whatever the hell you're doing. And I guess we'll catch you next time.
As Geddy Lee would say, thank you very much. Good night. In a very shrieky voice.
Is that how that? Okay.
Something like, I can't do Geddy Lee.
I got to find the show's over page here. Here it is. All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.